The living room, where the family meets to discuss issues, any issue which may be bothering one of the family members. That's what we do each and every Tuesday on WAC 90.1 FM with Ricardo Mitchell and DJ Aaron 868. We have casual conversations on serious topics, from sports to culture, mental health to economics, relationships to life lessons. Join us each and every Tuesday on WAC 90.1 FM. The Living Room, casual conversations on serious topics.
It is currently 6 p.m. here in Trinidad and Tobago. I still don't know why Ricardo does that every week when I say the time.
No watch. Out of timing.
Clearly,
That's my plan.
you succeed. Right? It's just, well, not to be at least 1 minute after 6 p.m. here in Trinidad and Tobago. I don't know what time it is where you are, but I'm glad to know you're locked on to the true nation station, WACK 90.1 FM, where we are culture crazy. Let's kick it off first and foremost, as we always do, alright? We must give thanks and praises to the Almighty for granting us the gift of life and seeing another day. No matter what time of day it is, you must always
Give thanks.
Secondly, we must say thank you to those that went before us. And when we say that, we're not just talking about the ancestors, the original inhabitants of Trinidad and Tobago, the Taínos and the Calanagos, because we all know that Columbus lied. And that pause was so dramatic effect.
It was
Right?
dramatic.
But also to our brother in music, Tony Prescott, and the P this week stands for...
Progress?
You sure?
Yeah. Progress, not perfection.
You sure?
Correct is right.
Right? This is another edition of Living Room with yours truly, DJ Aaron 868. I'm always great and I'm never late, alongside my bro with no fro.
Ricardo Mitchell, the babyface sage.
What?
Oh, we babyface
I'm the
today?
babyface sage now.
I thought that was me.
No. You have baby body. I have baby face.
Oh, jeez.
Wow. Really funny before we
Swinging at each other today.
Yeah, really funny before we get into the meat of the matter, because we are joined again today by Franz Gillezeau to wrap up the conversation that we started last week as we kick off Mental Health Month, where the theme for 2022 is Make Mental Health a Priority. And that's something that we in the living room have been doing. We make mental health a priority, right? But before we get down into the serious matters, I have a joke, right? So on Saturday morning, I went to get some clothes for work, particularly one work shoot. And you know how those sales attendants are on High Street?
Right.
They try and use all kinds of tactics and words to get you in the store. So I went with my mom because she had to get something as well. And a young lady was like, "Yeah, boy, uncle, let you and your wife come in to buy something now." I say, whoa.
Swing and a miss.
I was like, firstly, don't call me uncle. Secondly, that's not my wife, that's my mom. So I take that as a compliment to my mom that she still has the youth in her. But wow. Just to say I did not go in that store and buy any socks or drawers. Yeah, that was...
Well, you know, also can't claim to have no baby face, eh?
Yeah, boy.
I mean, the last uncle I get
That's
was
a red card.
a while back.
No, but
I was in the gas station the other day and I say, "Yeah, young boy, what you need?" So I feel like I win there.
You could take win,
Yeah.
Franz.
Yeah.
I've seen you topless for the day, and you definitely taken win.
I think that sound very strange, but thanks.
yeah, please.
Is that good?
Out of time, man.
Is that
It
good?
fit.
I should have just said bareback. But moving
Yeah, but that was before I took a shave. I think at least 20 years off my face there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just about have 40 to go again, and you'll be appropriate.
And we get down to the meat of the matter. Today we are joined, as I said, by Franz Gillezeau to, I wouldn't say wrap up the conversation, but to continue the conversation that we started last week. Right? The Lonely Road. I must say it was a very interesting conversation. It was well received, and persons have been looking forward to find out what is the way forward. Because we crossed the junction, we now going down the rest of the, I won't call it a lonely road, right? for the rest of the road. And we want to know, firstly, and we start off by asking all our guests this, and before we started recording, was not where's the scene, or was he just physicist and all those different things, but how are you, Franz?
Again, I'm good. The conversation we had last week was good. It was, as you said, it was well received. I got a lot of people reached out to me with support and their own stories, and it has me feeling hopeful, not just for myself, but for other people in the struggle, people around those in the struggle, that they can and will have the conversation now. So I am feeling pretty good.
Nice.
How are you all?
Ricardo, since I've been talking for the majority thus far.
Yeah, I've gotten used to you monopolize. Anyway,
You had a spot before reach out, because I find
no, it's just football season. You know? Yeah. Yeah.
Right, I get you.
But I'm good. I was very encouraged by the way the week went. And Aaron, you looking like you're trying to multiply two prime numbers, pensive.
No, I was actually doing it in multiples of 3.
Oh.
3, 6, how that goes.
Yeah.
Right? For me, I feel like I'm still not doing enough. Because on one hand, we are having the conversations. We are talking the talk and walking the walk in our own lives. But I still think that we as men still need to do better for other men. Because the topic of mental health is still taboo amongst my peers, within my age group. I can't say for Ricardo's peers or Franz's peers, alright?
We right there. We literally right there.
Remember, he's a baby face.
Oh.
So we hold up.
Right? Remember, 21.
Right.
So I still think we are not doing enough for men to give men that support emotionally, because our peacock parlance continues not just on a national scale, but also within our social circles, and we need to change that. If you have a friend that is saying, "Hey fellas, I'm feeling too good today," don't follow it up with, "Boy, just go and work out now," or just go and take a drink or something. Follow it up by asking. Yeah. You need to start following it up by asking, how are you doing, or what's bothering you? Because I think that's how we as men will begin to do better. Right? And for my friends out there, for those that I'm good with and those that I'm not so good with or communicate with often, I think I'm going to start to do that more. And that's how I'm feeling, that I need to do more. So this conversation has empowered me.
That is good. I also want to apologize to the people that I don't check in. I don't check in on them as much as I could.
Or take 2 weeks to answer the messages.
Or Aaron,
I feel like they need a whole episode to settle all the differences.
we need a mediator.
There are no differences to be settled.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's been a week. It's been a week. I guess this is a good opportunity for us to segue into that was so funny last week. Into what has your week been like? I know we're gonna have a conversation about the after and the road forward, the way forward. But I know people checking in, showing sudden interest, that type of thing. It was like when I had COVID. Every day somebody asking me how I'm feeling, and it's almost like I have to recycle the conversation.
Copy and paste the response.
Yeah, the copy and paste. Right? How have you felt having these conversations, or have they all been different in their own ways?
They've all been different because people ask different things. So a couple people have asked, so how are you now? Like, you're good? And the response to that is, I can only talk about this the way we spoke about it if I'm good.
Yeah.
If I was not in a good place, I cannot talk about it. So the fact that I can talk about it is an indication that I'm good.
Yeah.
Because I'm good enough to talk about it. Others had no idea what I'd been through, and so it wasn't shock, but it was concern of I didn't realize, and how has it been since, and how you doing these days, and how is work, and how's your family, and a couple people, like I said, reached out with either their own stories, one of which really took me aback, or to a similar story, but they weren't the individual. They're friends of the individual who was in the crisis moment, and so she asked how she could broach the subject with the friend who had survived an attempt, and what to say, what not to say, what to ask, how to deal with it. She was also asking a therapist on advice, but me having been there, she wanted my opinion as well. So the conversations have been good. This week has been, it's been a pretty normal week aside from the fact that I've had these conversations with people, but it's been good. It's been a really, really positive week.
Now, I like that question, Ricardo, because as you say, when something happens or you come out and admit something, that's when a sudden outpouring of care, for want of better words, come up, right? Now, we're gonna talk, as you say, we passed the junction and we're talking about the road going forward from that incident, right? So, in the initial aftermath, Franz, as you said in the drive back home, because you say you didn't remember calling and stuff like that, because you say depression tends to hamper with memory and stuff like that, right? So, to the best of your recollection, that first week after that incident,
what was it like?
Yeah.
I was in a brain fog for days afterwards. My synapses were not firing. It's like you take one of those old-timey muzzle-loaded guns and you drop it in water. It's not gonna fire. Sorry for the random analogy. I'll have pirates on my mind.
Yeah, I get it.
So you soak gunpowder in water, it's not gonna fire. Right? So my brain was moving like molasses. I was reaching for words I normally wouldn't have to reach for to have conversations. I was speaking very slowly. I would have to have people repeat themselves a couple times until I can filter it through wherever it has to go to understand what they're actually saying. My brain was muddled, and that lasted for weeks. Not as bad as the first 2 or 3 days. I was really, really muddled. But for weeks afterwards, I know I was speaking slower than I normally would. I was at a loss for words when I would not normally be. So it's because I was in shock. And so it got better the further away from the epicenter you get time-wise. But yeah, the first few days into the first few weeks, my brain just was on a go slow mode. And so the reason I was in shock is there's a huge difference between wanting to die and trying to die. Because having suffered with depression almost my whole life, as far as I can recall, I've wanted to die a lot. And one of the reasons people might ask, well, why don't you do something about it? You felt like this for a few weeks and then you finally come out of it. Well, go for help at the time. It feels like you're waking up from a dream and you don't remember just how low you were. You can't believe you were that low. So it was probably nothing. And you try to go on with your life. Like we were talking after the show last week about migraines. When you come out from a migraine, colors are brighter and every sounds are nicer and you don't really remember how much pain you were just in. Yeah. The further you get away from a dream, you don't really remember what the dream was or how you felt. So that's what it's like coming out of depression and getting past the point of suicidal ideation. You don't really remember just how dark it was. It could not have been that dark, so I'll just move on and that's not going to happen again. Right. So that's one of the reasons people may not seek help immediately. So, but then trying to die, it's like somebody tried to kill you you're gonna have PTSD. But the somebody was you, and so that's even scarier. Like the thoughts of it in those days immediately after terrified me. And so that was probably a lot of what informed the sluggishness of my brain and stuff. I was just in shock that I had reached that point and I had tried to kill myself. That was a trip to deal with mentally. And anyway, you were going to ask something.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, so on a daily, even on a moment-to-moment basis, you have to confront your threat. You have to confront the perpetrator.
Yeah.
You have to navigate. I can't say I'm not going to go to these places or I'm not going to do these things. I have to live with me.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine what it's like driving past places. What I mean is the PTSD experience.
Because I was going to ask that question. Now, there was a time where my company would have lost one of our ex-co-workers, and we had to do CISD for that. And the counselor asked,
CISD
what?
for the...
a critical incident stress debrief. So when something traumatic happens, you have a session to attend to that. Thanks, Ricardo, for verifying that. Right? And the counselor asked the question if any of us would have visited the site to see what or where the incident would have happened. So, Franz, I know this may be a tough question, right? But has there ever been an incident where you went back to that site?
Yes. And it's not a tough question. I was going to broach it myself if you all didn't. So, we talk about progress, and Ricardo's P-word, progress, followed by not perfection, is very important for any discussion of a recovery from the depths of mental health troubles. Because it is not a linear journey at all. You will make progress and you will backslide. There's almost no doubt about it. And so coming out of it, weeks go by, start to get back to life as normal. I'm still putting on a massive front. I mean, I'm not trying to be all holly jolly, but I'm definitely doing things just to do them. I don't want to be there. And I was in Miaro, so I backslid pretty heavily. And it started where we were in Miaro and I got a call or a message from, I think it was a message first and then a call. Did you hear about, I don't even remember the dude's name, So by So? I said, no, who is that and what happened? And another trainer who I didn't know had killed himself. He was down the islands at a party. This was a big bacchanal because apparently he got his hands on someone else's gun and committed suicide. It was very quickly kind of, I wouldn't say covered up, but it fell out of the headlines very quickly because I
think I recall that story too.
There was some bacchanal involved in it and I really don't know what has come out of it. Anyway, and when I heard about that, the first thought in my mind was, you lucky bastard, he get through.
Right.
And then I immediately arrested that thought and said, no, we're trying to do better than this. And I tried to put that thought out of my head, but that was the first thought I had. So what I did to counter that, and we were talking about self-awareness and stuff last time, and I'm gonna try to dive into just how important self-awareness is when you're battling these demons. What I try to do to counter it is, okay, think of all the things you would have missed if you had been successful. And so like, all right, I went to my sister-in-law's wedding. I saw my son do his first day at school, online though it may be. And so I just started ticking these boxes to try to combat that way boy, he get through kind of thought. Then a little while after that, I myself drove past the spot where it was meant to be, not actually where it happened, because I had eventually in my meandering drivings, I came up with a spot where it was supposed to be, but there were people there and there was police, and so I moved on to a different spot. But in my mind, that's the spot where it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
So I had driven past that spot, But because I was driving, I didn't pay any attention to it. I just drove past. A few weeks later, I was driven past that spot and I looked at it and I started, the PTSD came back up, and that was another chink in the armor that I started spiraling pretty hard. And I went to work. I was working at Cyborg's gym at the time. And it was, so this is post-COVID, there's hours during the day where it's just me. There's no members, I wasn't training clients at the time. So it's just me sitting there with way too many thoughts in my head. And I remember getting up and just kind of walking around, and I was looking at the beam. I was in a really bad headspace. And I walked by and I looked up at one of the beams and said, one day somebody gonna come inside here and find me hanging. And I thought, whoa, let's arrest that again, because hanging was never one of the ways I had thought of doing it, ever. I was like, that is a gross way to die. Because it's not, nobody, I'm not gonna snap my neck, I'll just choke out, and that's gross. You'll need to put a trigger warning on the front of this video.
Yeah. It's right there.
Right, good, trigger warning. So that thought crossed my mind again, and I tried to arrest it, I tried to get past it. But despite all these little heads up, you're not in a good place, I just carried on. I didn't tell anybody anything, I just carried on. And I spiraled and I spiraled and I spiraled. And I got right back to that point where I would have taken a drive. And I felt physically cold and emotionally completely numb. And I was thinking of places again to just go and get the deed done. And again, arbitrary point in the future, it's not going to be right this second. I'll wait until blah, blah, blah. And there's always a rationale behind it. So if I do it now, people are going to come in and somebody might try to stop me, and I don't want to go through that whole, you get caught trying to attempt suicide, and then that's a bag of drama I didn't want to have to go through. So I'll wait and do it some other time. And then I just happened to be watching a video, and it was one of my favorite YouTube channels, MMA. I think it was MMA on Point, and it was a list show where they were talking about the 10 most, I don't remember what, in MMA, and it was a tongue-in-cheek kind of jokey thing, and it gets to number 1, and the narrator just says the words mental health, and I cracked, and again just tears, and that snapped me out of it. That catharsis broke the spell, and I was like, all right, now we can't do this again. And I called the therapist, not that day actually, but so that broke the spell for that moment. I'm cleaning up the gym afterwards, and I looked up and caught sight of myself in the mirror, but unexpectedly. I didn't realize I would see my reflection, so I didn't have time to fix my face.
All right.
To look at myself in the mirror, and I didn't recognize who was looking back at me. And then I just kind of sat and stared at whoever this was looking back at me, and I did not recognize the person at all. This is when I had my fantastic follicles and stuff.
Yeah, very much Yuri Boyka.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
Boyka from Undisputed.
Greatest fighter in the world.
Okay.
We have some movies to talk about.
Yeah, we'll fix that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I didn't recognize who I saw in the mirror. So I went home that night and I shaved my beard to see if I would recognize if I was underneath the bed. And the face was there, but the eyes were not there. I did not recognize my own eyes, basically. I wasn't there. There was nothing behind the eyes. And that goes back to self-awareness again. You have to know who you are when you look at yourself in the mirror. And I didn't see me. So the next day I called the psychiatrist, because by this point I'd been weaned off of meds. I called the psychiatrist and I said, Dr. Maraj, I really think I need to go back on meds. And he, of course, he's not just going to say, okay, cool, no problem.
Franz wants meds, so
Here's some questions. He asked me some very pertinent questions and pointed questions. And the answers to those questions said to him, yes, okay, we'll put you back on for a 2-week dose. the same every other night thing, and then you'll move up to, so it would have been 3 weeks, every other night, and then every night, and then every other night, and then stop. And after a few days back on the meds, I recognized myself again. And friends of mine recognized me again. Because I had that conversation with a friend of mine. I wasn't feeling myself last time I saw you, and I'm feeling better now. And she said, yeah, you did not look like you last time, and you look like you now. So that's another thing people around those in the struggle can look for. If the person is very much not themselves, that could be a warning sign, and you could broach the topic with them. And like we were saying, it's not, was he seen, and you're good boy, and it's, how are you? Are you okay? Are you okay is an even better one. Another catharsis moment was a friend of mine, because I used to write a lot of this stuff on Facebook, and then I came off of Facebook entirely. Mm-hmm. And that sort of kicked a few friends of mine to ask, well, what's going on? I'm not seeing you, are you okay? I know you were going through some things. And that was really powerful, and that got me through a lot of moments after that. Is just, I have to remember how many people checked in on me, so that I can't tell myself nobody cares. Yeah, so you have to keep those things in your pocket for when you're going through your moments. And I'd gone to the point where I was going through emotions again, just doing things out of habit, like I talked about. And I was working out in the backyard, and a friend of mine, my friend Chow, he has been consistently checking up on me since. And you were talking about men need to check up on other men. Man, I have some fantastic men in my life, some proper brothers. And every now and then Chow would just hit me a message, how are you? But it's not the light, was he seeing, how are you? It's a, how are you doing? And just reading that message again, tears. Catharsis, immediately felt better. And I responded, I was like, man, I've been kind of going through it, but thanks for checking in. This helps a lot. And so like catharsis helps, whatever your form of catharsis is. Mine seems to be crying, and that breaks the spell, and it helps you get through.
I want to interject here, and this is something that I think needs to be said as well. For men out there, it's okay to cry. Crying is okay.
Sometimes crying might save your life.
Exactly. It's a sign of strength, not weakness. Remember that.
Yeah. Interestingly, a lot of this is serendipitous in just the way that it lines up. I posted a picture a couple of days ago on Instagram. I had my headphones on. I was listening to a friend of mine, his album, Christian hip hop artist, out of Baton Rouge. And the first line that hit me when I realized I'm going to sit and listen to this was the title of the song. He just asked first line, can I cry more? Like, as a man, can I cry more? Can I just experience what I'm experiencing? Is it okay for me to just feel what I'm feeling? Mm-hmm. And I'll be frank, I could remember stretches of years where I hadn't cried. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to actually tell this story because it was really weird. We were at work, so this had to be years ago. And shift work, you're there overnight. Of course, you have a movie or two or a series on your laptop or your phone or whatever. I mean, when you're working shift era, it's not like stuff happening all the time, right? And it's better that I'm awake watching an episode than I'm not awake.
Then you fall asleep on your work.
Right, which we don't advocate at all.
No, stay awake on your job, please.
Right, and I'm watching an episode of Hell on Wheels, right? This series about the Old West where they were building the transatlantic railroad. Transcontinental railroad. And they killed off one of the characters. And something inside me just snapped. I had not cried in maybe 8 or 9 years. And seeing a fictional character get killed off on a show, I just found myself gasping and started to feel the swelling and the lock, and I'm like, what is happening to me? So I get up and I go to the next office and I am leaning on the door and I am crying. And my co-worker at the time, admittedly, Lando, he's like, "What's going on? What happened?" And I'm like, "He dead, boy. I can't believe they killed him." And he's like freaking out, asking, who dead? Who dead?
I think anybody would have that same
Right?
response.
If that's your first way of explaining it, he dead boy.
And he's seeing Ricardo crying. The last time he saw me cry would have been when our mom passed away, which would have been in 2001.
Well, that's exactly why he reacted the way he reacted.
Right? And I got proper cuss. He proper cuss when I explained to him it was this fictional character in the show.
Good.
But I sat and I had to process, what about my makeup? What about the way that I think? What about the way that I manage things led to a fictional character being killed off in a show, tipping a scale? I had to sit and process how I was dealing with the things that I'm feeling and thinking. Why would that have triggered me? And worse yet too, why was I so loaded that even when triggered, this is what came out? So yeah, can I cry more?
No,
You probably should.
I probably should.
I'm not smiling or laughing because of these stories, but I'm smiling and laughing because I think with men especially, we tend to show that emotion either during sports or for movies or something of the sort, because the last time I would have cried, I think was, again, I'm a sap for emotional stuff. Just saying.
We've been transparent here, no judgment.
Yeah, just saying, right? But like openly in front of someone was, I think I went to watch the movie Here Comes the Boom. And after watching the movie, walking outside with my girlfriend at the time, I just broke down and started crying. Now, I don't know if any of you ever saw that movie.
That's Kevin James MMA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Oh, yes.
That movie has nothing to cry.
No, there's nothing.
Nothing.
There's nothing tearworthy in that
Nothing
movie.
tearworthy. And I'm walking out of the cinema and I just broke down. And as Ricardo said, I don't know what moment it was that really just opened up the floodgates.
Maybe it was the guy's love of music, because that's really the emotional center of the movie. Is the music teacher who could come back to teaching his music, and maybe that might have been it. I don't know. I definitely didn't cry in that one.
And as you think, so for the male listeners right now, really think to yourself and ask yourself, when last did you cry? And not because Man U lost this weekend.
Badly.
Thank you very much for reminding the listeners. Not because West Indies, is West Indies.
Or TKR.
Or TKR is TKR. Or when last did you just cry and let your emotions show?
More than show, let them out.
Thank you.
Yeah, because you don't have to show in front of anybody.
What?
You have your private moments, and
And not just the emotional crying, huh? If even it's hysterical laughter because you find something funny or something upset you and you allow yourself that moment to embrace the rage. Because as we say, sometimes when you keep things bottled up, it's worse than letting it out. And again, I'll be in no way advocating for any form of violence. We don't do that here. Alright? So let's get back to the conversation now.
so to just kind of put a cap on the progress part, and then segue into support and how to have the discussion. Progress, not perfection. So I backslid. I got right back to the point where I was. I had my little moment of catharsis, recognized what had happened, and then sought help immediately thereafter. And what I've been telling myself, and what I can tell people, is 3 steps forward and 2 steps back is still 1 step forward. So progress, not perfection. Give yourself credit for where you've come, because I can't say that before that moment I recognized or didn't recognize anything in my eyes, even leading up to the attempt. That did not factor. So that was progress. That in itself is progress. Reaching out immediately after is progress, instead of waiting to see if it happens again. which historically is just kind of what I've done. Because again, you forget about how dark it was, and then you just carry on like it's never going to happen again. So those kinds of things are progress. So back to men checking in on men, or I mean checking in anyway, but it's really powerful when your brother's checking on you. Just because men are typically not that emotional. So 2 good friends of mine, both named Mark, for some reason, might be something to that. So my friend Mark Chow, he's the one who checked in on me and caused the little moment of catharsis in the backyard. My other friend Mark, who I talked about last week, who gave me the safe space to just kind of be, he is the first person I told. And so this is how to deal with finding out and how to have the conversation. He's the first person I told outside of the immediate family, who I never actually told, but they just kind of knew what happened.
Yeah.
And we were shooting pool. So what happened, because I couldn't drink on the meds, my father, I think like the weekend after, said, come, let's go to my brother's compound where he lives. They have a pool and a pool table. We'll go shoot some pool, the kids will play. He had beers, I was drinking ginseng. And listened to music, and we played pool. We didn't really talk about anything, we were just in each other's company. So that became my safe space, because one of the other things coming out of the attempt and the PTSD is I developed extreme social anxiety, which is not something I'd ever had before. I did not want to go out. I didn't want to have to talk to people I didn't know. Like I realized it when I was trying to go Allied to buy something, and the thought of having to go into this massive store, not know where the thing is, so I might have to speak to an attendant, and I just drove around and went back home because I didn't want to go inside. And this is something that I'd never experienced before, so I had to sit and think about it, and why did I react like that? And I realized I ended up going back the next day. I went inside. I eventually had to speak to an attendant, and when I did and nothing bad happened, I just felt better immediately. And that began my kind of recovery from social anxiety. But it was bad enough that I couldn't go out till I still couldn't drink, so why am I going to sit down in a bar? I didn't want to go sit by Mark to also not drink and then just kind of sit there and stare at each other awkwardly. So let's go shoot some pool. And we don't have to talk, just be in each other's company, and cool, you drink your beers, I drink my ginseng, and everything is everything. And I think like the second time we went, I just said it. And trigger warning, I'm about to say what it actually was. I'm just standing there, I think he's about to take a shot, or I was about to take a shot, and I said, yeah, I tried to kill myself a couple weeks ago. And he didn't move. He didn't react. He didn't nothing. He just stood there with the pool cue and said, wow, really? And I said, yeah. I put a knife to my throat, but my hand wouldn't move. Tried several times. And that's what happened that day. That's why I was by my parents and blah, blah. And again, didn't react. He's like, that's intense. How are you now? And I said, I'm fine. I'm better. Sorry, I'm not fine. I'm better. Otherwise, I would not have been able to tell you. But I just wanted you to know. And that, it's, how should I put it? That was a little selfish of me that's a lot to lay on somebody. But it created for me, somebody knows now, and I can just be myself in front of that someone. Right. I don't have to hide when I'm around him now. He knows what happened. He knows before, he knows after. So now I created for myself this safe space that I could just be me. And to his credit, he took that like a champ, because not everybody can react to news like that as calmly as he did. And going back to checking up on people and asking pointed how are you questions, I would go over by him when I weaned off the meds and I can drink again. Go over by him on a Friday or a Saturday to have some beers because I still couldn't go out. And he would very pointedly ask me, how are you? how are you doing today? How has the week been? Are you back in that place, or you're good? And we would have, it was very brief, it wouldn't be the whole night, but that's how it would start. You're good? You're all right? You're sure? Cool. And then we'd talk about what went on football, or if they had a fight on that night or something. So being calm in having the conversation with people in struggle, people who've attempted, being calm is baseline. That's where you start. Do not get hysterical with them. Please don't try to psychoanalyze them. You're not a therapist. And I understand the curiosity of, well, why? Because I'm always more interested in why something happened than the fact that it happened.
Yeah.
And so I understand wanting to ask why, and then wanting to try to help the person navigate through the feelings and stuff. If you are not trained, please do not try to do that. You will make it worse. You are not trained to ask the right questions and then recognize when the person starts to spiral, and then recognize when you might be pushing too hard, you might need to back off. If you are not trained to carry the flow of the conversation, please do not try to psychoanalyze your friends who are in crisis or coming out of an attempt. You will most likely just make things worse, and ensure that they're not going to come to you anymore. Listen. And if you're trying to counteract their depressive manifestations, nobody cares, and I'm no good at work, and I'm no good at parenting, and I'm no good at my hobbies. If you're gonna counteract that, which you should, just do it pretty matter-of-factly. Point out to them why they're wrong, but don't say, no, you're wrong. Say, oh, come on, you know your son loves you, or didn't you just get that award? Something like that. But don't say, no, you're wrong, you're full of it. Or so don't be too aggressive with it, but just gently point out to counteract. Maybe don't say you're wrong, but gently counter them with facts, not opinions.
With the positives.
With the positives, yes. And keep them forward focused. A big part of therapy in the aftermath was keeping me forward focused. Dominic was constantly encouraging me to start teaching kids in Taekwondo in the garage. And he was, every single session, he would, what have you done today or this week to get to that point? Have you talked to parents? Have you talked to your kid? It took me a little while to realize why that was. It's something to plan for and keep you forward focused and keep you going. So that's several ways to have the conversation, and some things not to say. Tough love is not going to work in a crisis situation. Yeah, well, life's a bitch and then you die. Come on, deal with it. Is not going to work. That will do much more harm than good. If you know you are not in a place yourself, mentally or emotionally, to deal with somebody like this and potentially save a life, please just don't even try. It's better if you say maybe you should call so-by-so. Please don't try to help if you know you are yourself down, which is fine. Everybody has their moments. Not everybody can be everything to everybody at the same time. So if you know you're not able, maybe you should call your brother, your father, your mother, somebody. But it's not me today. It can't be me today, and that's fine. Because if you try and it's not your day to be that person, you could do more harm than good.
Well, and that comes back to the self-awareness again. And not just self-awareness as you, the person who is in crisis, but the self-awareness of you, the person who that person who's in crisis is reaching out to.
Has gone to, yep.
Right? And I also love the fact that he was saying that if you are not trained to deal with these scenarios, try your best not to attempt to do it. Right?
Yeah, don't psychoanalyze. By all means, help the person, but don't try to psychoanalyze them. Don't ask them therapy type questions. Well, how does this make you feel? And well, have you thought of trying this? And please don't. You're gonna push too hard. and you'll do more harm than good.
Again, I'm smiling and laughing at this because we all have attended and graduated from, in different degrees, from the University of YouTube. Right? And not because you look at a couple videos from Psych today, or you look at episodes of Chit Chat, or whatever it may be, that means that all of a sudden that you are a mental health professional. No. Going to school for these types of things takes years. It takes practicum hours. It takes professional development hours for you to be able to confidently ask the questions that Franz is referring to here. Please don't graduate from the University of YouTube and think that you are a professional in mental health. I begging.
I begging too.
In full transparency, this part of the conversation is a challenge for me. And the reason I'm saying that is because I was maybe 14 or 15 when I was first confronted with a co-op. You know, the trigger warning. I'm tying a belt around the burglar proofing. I'm going to kill myself. I was a pubescent teenager. I could tell you now that after 25 years of being the person that someone says maybe you should talk to, I have never been professionally trained. I do have 25 years or more of navigating, and I will apologize to everybody who was a part of my learning curve and who is a part of my learning curve. Because, say the catch, I don't know what I don't know. The challenge for people who inclined to provide that type of assistance, or are that they are that person in people's lives, please be mindful of what you see or what you could navigate or negotiate in that instance is not always what the person is prepared for.
Exactly.
The self-awareness is not just about being insightful or intuitive or being able to help somebody navigate their feelings. It is about the timing of how much, of when, of if. You have to recognize your own capacity. You have to recognize when, listen, this is not a conversation for us to have today. Because yesterday I would have said one thing, tomorrow I'll say something else. But where I am right now, I will do more harm than good. Yo, I can't talk now, you know. Or if you don't want to reject the person by saying that you can't talk now, but you don't answer. What I'm saying is, depending on what the situation is, you have to kind of treat each situation, each encounter on its own merit. The self-awareness is very important, because I ain't lie to tell you, I've gone from being that tough love, I just trying to help you, being honest with your person, to actually on record, here and I see how you're looking at me, being commended for developing my delivery over time. But here the catch, it's not even about developing the delivery. It's about respecting other people's capacity. Not everybody who is in a position to counsel is a counselor.
Ooh, that's profound.
Well, thank you. So here the catch, right? If in your helping you're doing more harm than good, as much as it might be against your nature, you'll have to stop helping until you get better at what it is you're trying to do.
Or don't say anything at all.
Just listen.
Like you said, don't answer the call. That's not something I would advocate for at all. Somebody's reaching out to you. You have had a responsibility thrust upon you. You need to do something. So somebody calls and says, I've tied a belt to the burglar proof and I'm gonna kill myself. You don't have to try to psychoanalyze that person. You go over and you tell them, don't. You don't have to say anything when you go there. If you go there, you don't have to say anything. Just be there. That's all it takes. They can talk and they can talk and they can talk, and you just nod and say, and let them express themselves. Most people, as I said last week, they just want somebody to listen. Touch is also very powerful. Just a hand on a shoulder if it's a brethren, or a hug even if it's a brethren, guy, girl, whatever. Hugs are really powerful emotional tools. I mean, there's studies on this, but a hand on a shoulder just to let somebody know you're there. the reason I could not and would not do these conversations through a screen is this would not have been there. And I would not have felt like y'all were with me to be able to talk me through this. And you can't do that. You can't have that level of connection over a phone, and certainly not through a screen. And so that's why I insisted, and y'all accommodated, that this be an in-person discussion, because over the phone and through a screen would not work for something like this. I would have shelled up and not said anything.
Franz, you tap my phone or something, or on my WhatsApp or something?
My name is not Zuckerberg, so I don't do those things.
Wow.
Guess what? We never airing on Facebook now.
Right?
Sorry, Mark.
The reason why I asked that is because just this week I was telling some friends of mine, and we really need to accept and understand this, that 90% of all communication is non-verbal, right? So you can't get tone. I've said this and I continue to say it. You can't get tone through a WhatsApp message.
Well, you can, but you can't get correct tone.
Well,
you read a WhatsApp message in whatever tone is in your head, but it's not necessarily the tone the person intended.
So, for example,
even emojis
and
are ambiguous. So
typing in caps that people take as shouting. If I'm using web WhatsApp and I am in my work software, which I have to type in caps in all the time, and I just go to answer a message, I just go and type in caps one time. I just type in. You may think I'm shouting, but this is
you're screaming at me if you're typing at me in caps.
I wouldn't even read your status if I seen too much.
If it's all caps.
Really?
Yeah, I ain't going to shoot that.
So you would read someone and I shout, I forget, I'm not supposed to be commenting on social issues. My apologies. Right? But again, you can't have all the conversations that you want to have through WhatsApp. Some of them you need to have either phone, like actual talking, or in person like this. And I always advocate that certain conversations need to be had over the phone or in person, especially difficult conversations with personal problems, relationship issues, or sometimes national issues. And that's the only reference I'm making to that.
What I will say is I will apologize to the numerous people whose calls I don't answer. It's not factual, but listen, I will do better in terms of at least acknowledging if I can't speak at that point in time.
Swipe up, I'll call back. Swipe up, can't talk right now.
Right. Because
depending on the type of phone you have.
Capacity, and maybe there's a conversation that we could go into as we continue the mental health month, but awareness of the capacity is a huge issue when it comes to burnout.
What is burnout, Ricardo?
What is burnout, Iran?
No, we're supposed to sacrifice. Oh, sorry. It there now. But anyhow,
you're gonna use this the
S word.
The S word?
Yeah, boy.
Anyway.
Alright. But really and truly, guys, now we are getting perilously close to the end of today's program, and I know you all look forward to hearing me use that P word each and every week. Now we're gonna let Franz have a couple minutes here.
So one of the ways you as the individual or the people around the individual is give them something to achieve. And that sense of achievement, that sense of moving forward, it builds momentum. So finding forward focus is the goal. Meeting goals and meeting achievements along the way is a way to reinforce the forward focus. And so that's how either you, the individual in the struggle, can do it, or the people around the individual can give them something to focus on moving forward and goals to achieve on the way, because momentum has an impetus of its own and it will get you forward. Things to look for, the people around them, because self-monitoring will only go so far. And we talked about sleeping a lot the last time, mood shifts. Somebody once described depression as your personality slowly fading away and being replaced by a block of concrete. If there's major personality shifts, that's a warning sign. A big warning sign is giving away or throwing away formerly prized possessions, I remember, and there's a lot of intent. People aren't just along for the ride. There is intent behind what they're doing because they want to die. I wore a hat, a flat cap by Mark a night, and I really wanted him to compliment my hat so that I could give it to him, because I had all intents at that moment. Within a couple of weeks, I'm going to try again. He did not compliment my hat. It's a nice hat, but he didn't do it, so I could not give it to him. But had he done it, I would have given him the hat. And you like it? Here, hold it now. And then that would have been the first step of me giving away something. Honestly, that's the first time that ever occurred to me to do. I have thought of throwing away all my Taekwondo do box, ripping up my certificates, because in my mind I am a garbage martial artist and I'm just gonna destroy this stuff. But then another voice said that would be way too obvious a thing to do. They will know you're in crisis. You don't want them to know you're in crisis, so don't do it. And small segue, the people around, and now I'm gonna talk to those left behind. Don't be too hard on yourself. The person who has killed themselves did not want you to know, and they did everything in their power for you not to realize what they were going through. It is insidious, it is sneaky what your mind tells you when you're in this moment. Don't be too obvious. They will figure you out and they will stop you, and you don't want them to stop you. Distancing yourselves from friends and family is another sign. A lot of people talk about how it's because of shame, which it is. It's because you have no social battery whatsoever, which is true. Another big part of it is you do not want to be stopped. And so you will distance yourself from anyone you think is going to stop you. And that is a really disturbing thing to realize that you're doing. Because I've realized I've done it. And that was why. Why are you doing this to this person? Like, why have you distanced yourself so much? And I mean, you all have talked about, you all have mentioned my self-awareness. To me, it's not something that I'm that aware of, ironically enough. But I toy with things in my mind until, like, you're cracking a safe, it goes click. And the click that came was, I do not want this person to stop me. And they will stop me. And I'll listen to them if they try to stop me. And I don't want to be stopped. So I'm going to push this person away. I'm going to distance myself. So to those left behind, I'm sorry in that position, but the person did not want you to know. So don't be too hard on yourself. A lot of people talk about how they should have seen and they realized something was wrong. Hindsight is always 20/20. The person did not want you to know. And also, I'm very sorry for your loss.
As we wrap up this conversation and kickstart mental health month conversations, I'll continue them next week. I first and foremost want to say, Franz, thank you very much for, one, inviting yourself to the living room, two, initiating probably one of the realest conversations we have ever had inside the living room, three, allowing us to spend this time together, because it's been a while since we have done a face-to-face episode, right? And it means a lot to get to sit in this space and have these kinds of conversations. And certainly, last but not least, the courage to sit with us and tell your story. Because this story is not one which should be hidden. This story is one that needs to be said for persons to know that they are not alone. That their thoughts or their ideations are not unique to them, that there are other persons that would have gone through or are going through it, and that there are persons that have continued walking that road, that journey called life, right? So I want to thank you very much, Franz, for that. I also want to invite myself now to a couple taekwondo lessons. Where's Ricardo?
No. This is me actively listening. That's all. I mean, I remember he was taking up swimming as well.
And I got him a swim instructor, as I recall.
Yes. That I'll be starting when I come back from Tobago.
That was 4 years ago. What?
COVID happened in between that
2 years after that? Nah, man. Nah, you're on.
Nah, but no, I learned to dance already. Now I'm gonna learn to swim and probably train a couple taekwondo lessons somewhere in there too.
We ain't that.
Right? So again, thank you very much, Franz. We forgot to tell you that you could have come in a football jersey today, but only one of us had to take the pay.
I did not get that memo, otherwise I would have been rocking my Man U as well. But
yeah, well, I think I have a suspicion that this will not be the last time that we have in this type of sit down. So you'll get an opportunity to wear your Man U jersey.
I mean, I don't have to wear, but if that was the dress code, then
no, that was out of pure
spite.
Yes.
Barcelona play today. What you gonna do? Right. This has been, again, thank you, Franz. We've been back and forth about, hey, get ready, bringing in the living room, and you'd be like, hey, I want to talk about something, and we'd make it happen. This was important in terms of how it happened and what it started. Right? I'm not even kidding. Literally, a couple hundred people already went and looked at the conversation we had last week. And it's good to know that it means something. It's good to know that the experience in itself not wasted, because we could still refine it and take some positive out of everything that we're going through. If somebody gets help, if somebody learns how to have a conversation, if somebody looks into learning how to have the conversation, at the end of the day, we're not responsible for the entire work.
Or if somebody even just knows the numbers that they can call.
220-3636.
That's the one.
For Lifeline. This is Ricardo Mitchell, the Babyface Sage. They tell him I should go back more facial here. We'll see. Thank you guys for joining us in the living room. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for staying locked on to WAC 90.1 FM. Thank you for going to DJ Aaron 868 YouTube channel and looking at the episodes. Thanks for those who shared, who like, who subscribe, because for me, knowing that this means something to you is part of my impetus to continue doing it.
I wish there was somebody, like I could have had somebody to listen to while I was going through it. And instead of just thinking, and this goes back to people's self-awareness and what people can do for themselves, talking about it helps, honestly. It's a form of therapy and catharsis. I mean, comedians make entire hour-long bits about the stresses that they go through, and it helps them go through it. Musicians write all the time about what they're going through. In fact, there's songs about suicide. I mean, unfortunately, a couple of those artists did follow through, but there's endless songs about depression and suicide, and that helps that artist get through that moment. It's not about glorifying or romanticizing, it's them getting it out. And on the other hand, because I know these conversations aren't had by a lot of people, instead of sitting around and saying, somebody should, here am I, send me. So it really is my pleasure to do these kinds of things, intense though they can be. And yes, you're right, the feedback, the shares, the messages, that all makes it worth it to know that you're helping people.
I don't even think I had already signed out today. But it's something that we have to do to let you all know that it signals the end of the program and also the start of the big band with Mr. Desmond. All right. I will end by my usual saying that love is the currency. So spend some today. Let somebody know that you love them. And I challenge you for the coming week to tell your partners that you love them. Male affection is not something that we are taught. It's not something that we practice. let your partners know that you love and appreciate them. For the fellas, if your father is still there with you, call them now. If you're watching it on your phone, you could come back and continue after. But call your father or your brother now and let them know that you love them. Especially because our fathers are some of the forgotten heroes in our lives. Alright?
Mm-hmm.
Keep it locked to the True Nation station, WACK 90.1 FM. As I said, Mr. Desmond is up next. Remember, it is Calypso History Month. So, we could look out for my Kaiso mix, probably.
I'll take that.
Probably. I'm too sure. We'll see how scheduling works, right? Up next, Mr. Desmond, and catch me again on Friday inside the Friday Night Fete.